Hey friends, it's me, May, and tonight we're going to do day 6 of our Bible reading plan, One Story That Leads to Jesus. So just stay tuned. Okay, everybody, so last night we had went through, let's see, we did Genesis chapter 16. We were talking about Hagar and Sarah. It's still tickling me. I can't get past it. Then we went into the covenant where it now requires something of Abram and Abraham and Sarah are Abram and Sarai's new names that the Lord has given them. The requirement of Abraham when the promise of God and was revealed once again to him, because we know that God keeps reinforcing that he's got a promise and a covenant with Abram. He gives them new names, and he now requires circumcision, a physical mark upon the body of all men of his house are bought of his money for his generation and every generation for the rest of time, to mark that they are part of God's covenant. And then we went over chapter 18, where we have the 3 men who come and talk to Lot, and we know that 2 are angels and 1 is the Lord. And Sarah laughed when she heard the news that she was in fact going to conceive a child. And over here we went over how Abram tries to intercede for Sodom and asks for 50 all the way down to 10 righteous people. Would the Lord spare the city? And in the end, the Lord agreed because he loves Abraham. Okay, so tonight, my friends, we are starting chapter 19 through 21. Now, like I had said last night at the end of the video, this is some pretty delicate material tonight, and a lot of people, I don't know how to say it without being like, sometimes this one chapter alone, chapter 19, can become very controversial. I feel like with people putting their personal opinions into how to interpret the verse. So what I'm going to tell you is what I have told you since the beginning. I am not a teacher. I look at this very straightforward. I read the verse. I read lots of commentary. These notes are comprised of the commentary readings that I do based on the daily's plan of chapters to read. If I read commentary and I'm like I had done with Cain and Abel and I do not agree with what it is saying, I have no problem continuing to read different commentaries until I find something that speaks to me and I'm going, yes, I think that's exactly the way I would take that. So, like I said, it is delicate material, but I am trying not to put my own personal views and opinions into any of the scriptures from Genesis all the way through Revelation. So, just bear with me and let's go through this. Okay, so God is going to rescue Lot, is what it says here. It says, when Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, my lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet, and then you may rise up early and go on your way. And they said, no, we will spend the night in the town square. But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked them unleavened bread, and they ate. Now we know that these are the 2 men that were the angels with the Lord of God, because when God appeared, when Abram was sitting at the front of his tent, and he saw the 3 men coming, it says, Abram immediately, Abram runs to show the 3 men deep respect and hospitality, because it's like it's pressed upon Abraham that these are angels, this is the Lord. And then the Lord does reveal himself to Abraham after they have eaten the meal that his servants and Sarah have prepared. So we know that with Lot sitting outside of Sodom's city gates and he sees these two men approaching, he immediately feels the same way, that these are angels come. And he knows. I put Lot insists the angels stay with him at his house that night instead of the town square, for he knows they will not be saved. Does Lot know there is, or that this is the time of reckoning? It makes you wonder, because he literally rushed to them and was like, no, 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 don't stay in the town square. You gotta come with me. So it says, but before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all of the people to the last man, surrounded the house. They called out to Lot, where are the men who came with you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them. Now, verse 4 and 5 is where people get very controversial. But Sodom, much like the name refers to, is what these men wanted to do. Okay, so I'm pretty sure y'all are following my train of thought there. However, this town was truly wicked, my friends. Both cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. And they had multitudes of sins. That's why God was walking with the two angels to walk to the plain in the valley where Sodom and Gomorrah were, to see if they were as wicked as he'd been hearing. Now, we both know that he is omnipotent. He's all-knowing. He definitely knew that the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were truly, truly wicked. He is humoring Lot and he is humoring Abraham and letting him know his plan to destroy these cities, to exact judgment on them. A lot of people want to pick on just the fact of what they said they wanted to do to the men. The fact is, in God's eyes, sin is great as any other sin. You lie to your parents, you steal, you murder, you molest. Sin is sin. Sins carry the same weight in God's eyes. Okay? So I put none greater or lesser than the other. Okay, I put, however, this town was truly wicked, both cities, of multitudes of sins, none greater or lesser than the other in God's eyes. This is why the angels have come to destroy the cities. Okay? So Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, I beg you, my brothers. My brothers, really? With these people? Do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof. But they said, stand back. Stand back. And they said, this fellow come to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal with you. We will deal worse with you than with them. And then they pressed hard against the man Lot and drew near to break the door down. Okay, so we've got Lot now saying, if you leave these guys alone, I'll give you my daughters who have not known a man. It's like, and I wrote down here, it's an anything goes society. Okay, anything goes. You've got any wicked sin you can think of. It's like Vegas times 1,000. Okay, you can do anything you want, and there's no repercussions for anything. And the reason that they do point out that this fellow came to sojourn is because Sodom and Gomorrah were known for not allowing nomadic peoples, travelers, to come into their city. But Lot had been there basically before it had gotten that wicked. We remember back here, Abraham did a strategic night attack because when the epic battle between the 9 kings happened, he was taken prisoner. And those kings were trying to reward Abraham for, setting some of their people go as well during that time. And he said, I want nothing other than what we're owed. I can't take anything from you. But when he's offering his daughters in this anything goes society, I wrote, this passage shows clearly Lot's fear, but more clearly his lack of faith in God. By offering his untouched daughters to this crazed mob, we see just how complicit his life in the city of Sodom has become. The angels do not need any protecting, and Lot knows the time has come for the city of Sodom's reckoning. And that's why he's frantic. He's trying to think of any reason he can to pacify this mob, calm them down so they don't turn their wrath on you. That's, in the end, what he's trying to do. And he's lived there too long. He has literally, I put Lot's become a man lost in the sodomite culture and has little of his morality left. I mean, this is what he's raised his children in. It's where he's married his wife and he stayed. He decided, oh, this is a good enough place for us to raise our children, knowing after he, had been with Abram and they have been called, and he knows of God's promise, and he knows that his uncle is walking with the Lord. This is what he has engrossed himself into. And he knows that when they showed up, they're going to exact justice on this town, because he knows better than anyone exactly what Sodom and Gomorrah is all about. So, but the men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door, and they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door, because they couldn't see anything. They were just like, what's going on, what's going on? They finally get tired and they go away, And then the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here, sons-in-laws, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city? Bring them out of this place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against his people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and said to his son-in-laws who were to marry his daughters. Now, right there, he's so engrossed in this culture, and it's like one of those things, like if you're in a situation, you kind of like don't, you gradually lose, it chips away a piece of you. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever heard somebody tell a story and you're like, you're on the outside looking in and you're like, you can't see this? Well, when you live in that type of bubble and you're just engrossed in it so much, you come so complacent, you just let things go, you get used to it. And he's even thinking that this is a good enough city, even though he knows it's full of sin, that his daughters can marry some men here. And he says, get up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city. But he seemed to his sons-in-laws to be jesting. They thought he was kidding. So as morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city. But he lingered. Okay? And it's because Lot doesn't want to leave the city. This is why he lingers. He is so immersed in the sin that he's conflicted about it. Okay? So the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, and Lord, be merciful to him. And they brought him out and set him outside the city. And as they brought him out, one said, escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away. And Lot said to them, oh, no, my lords. Behold, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot escape to the hills, lest the disaster overtake me and I die. Behold, the city is near enough to flee to, and it's a little one. Let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my life will be saved. And he said to him, behold, I grant you this favor also, that I will not arbiter the city of which you have spoken. Escape there quickly, for I can do nothing until you arrive there. Therefore, the name of the city was Zor, and Zor actually means small. And it's like, I wrote over here, it's like Lot wants to try to save something, and he doesn't believe he'll survive if he goes to the hills. It's like trying to save a little piece of Vegas, like, don't get rid of everything, not everything I've come to know. But he also doesn't have enough faith that, they're sparing him. They've saved him from the night before, and they're letting him and his wife and daughters go. And he still doesn't think he can make the hills like they're telling him to. He thinks he's still going to die. He does not have any faith. No. And that's the problem. Okay. So it says God destroys Sodom. The Lord rained down sulfur and fire upon everything in the cities and all of the valley. But Lot's wife disobeyed, even though they had been spared, and was turned into a pillar of salt. Sodom had been wiped out, but it hadn't been wiped out from their hearts, is basically what this is saying to you. And we know by looking at this that the only reason that Lot and his family were saved is because of the last verse here in this section. It says, so it was that when God destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. It wasn't that Lot was one of the righteous that, Abraham had been talking about. It wasn't. He wasn't one of the righteous people that Abraham was saying, will you spare the city for? It was because God remembered Abraham. And that's why he sent Lot and his family out, is to not break Abraham's heart. Got what I'm saying? So that's the way I take Genesis 19, my friends. This is the way I take Genesis 19. Not to pinpoint people's sins directly, because it's not our place to judge. It's our place to just read and try to understand. And I have been praying over this material, and this is the way I take it. So we get now down to this really odd section here. Lot and his daughters. Now Lot went up to Zoar and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. Went up out of Zoar, and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. He lived in a cave with his 2 daughters, and the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come in to us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and laid with her father. He did not know when she lay down and when she arose. And basically, she wakes up the next morning. She tells her younger sister, she said, I did it, now it's your turn. So it's just a little bizarre, and this is the notes that I put, okay, after reading some commentary. Is that Lot's daughters decide to take matters into their own hands, much like, back here in Egypt. I'm gonna keep playing on that Egypt thing, y'all, because they were really dirty over here. Abram and Sarah, they lied to the Pharaoh. They say, we're not man and wife. She's my sister and he's my brother. And then they do the same thing where, Sarah gets all bent out of shape because she wants Hagar to be Abram's second wife, but she wants the baby that would be, as part of their union. So that's 2. So, when you're taking matters into your own hands, it's never a good thing, And they have they have lost all hope. Their finances are dead, as well as their mom. And they have lost everything and are living in the cave. And they are products of the sodomite culture their parents raised them in. And they have no understanding that God will provide, because they weren't taught that. That's what Lot should have taught his family, is that God will provide. You need to trust in the Lord. And yeah, they have no understanding that God will provide. Just believe and have faith is all they had to do. And Lot's story ends here in the Bible in ruin and shame and humiliation. Okay? The only thing that we know, as chapter 19 is summing up here from all this, is that both daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. Their firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day, and the younger also bore a son and named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites to this day. And we know that both groups of these people would later become Israel's enemies. So that's why in a lot of the commentary I was reading, that's why we know that Lot was not one of the righteous men, is because of this act alone, especially with Lot. They're going to be enemies of Israel. So all they had to do was seek the help of the Lord, and he would provide for them. But they didn't do that. Okay. So let's go into Abraham and Abimelech. I'm going to get it right. Abraham and Abimelech. All right. So for Abraham and Sarah, his wife, she is my sister, and Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. And Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, she is my sister. And the king Abimelech took Sarah, just like the Egyptian Pharaoh had. But God came to Abimelech in a dream and that night and said to him, behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you've taken, for she is a man's wife. And Abimelech had not approached her. So he said, Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not say himself to me that she is my sister? And she herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I've done this. I have done this. Then God said to him in a dream, yes, I know that you have done this in integrity of your heart. And it was I who kept you from sinning against me. So in other words, I understand he lied to you. And I know you haven't touched her. But the only reason you haven't touched her is because I stopped you. You know, that's basically what he's saying. And therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet. Now, this is the first time we see that word in the Bible, prophet. So we know that Abraham is a prophet. So that he will pray for you and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. So Abimelech gets freaked out about this. He's like, man, this man lied to me. I didn't do anything wrong. And now his God's coming to me in a dream. And he says, if I don't give him back to this guy who's a prophet and make things right and he doesn't pray for me, I'm going to die and everybody in my house too. So, you know, he gets really upset and he talks to his servants and he tells everybody, you know, and they're like all afraid. So he calls for Abraham and he says, what have you done to us, and how have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what did you see that you did this thing? And I love this. I love how straightforward this king is to Abraham. Just like puts him in his place. He's like, man, why'd you do it? And what did I do with you being here, you know, that made you think you had to do this? You know, and that's just, and the things that ought not to be done. Like I was saying back here with the pharaohs, you know how it can go when you lie to a king. And I love it. I just love how he put him in his place very quickly. And he said, Abraham said, and I did it because I thought there is no fear of God at all in this place. And they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, this is the kindness you must do me. At every place which we come, say of me, he is my brother. So it's like, wow, you answering it, but you're just trying to sound all spiffy, you know, like, it's okay. Y'all were going to kill us. That's why we had to do it. No. This is not the first time he's been deceitful. The first time in Egypt, God intervened, and Abraham was blessed in spite of his fear and faithlessness. Here in Gerar, Sarah and Abraham lie again, and Sarah is taken once again. God demonstrates both his faithfulness and mercy. He afflicts Abimelech's household and appears to him in a dream, saying he will die for taking a married woman. Abimelech confronts Abraham about the lie and demands to know why he did it. And Abraham's answer to the king reveals once more his lack of confidence in God's ability to protect him and Sarah, in spite of all the ways that God has shown himself faithful. Abimelech returns Sarah with gifts of animals, choice of land, servants, and lots of silver, and Abraham indeed prays for him, the king, and his household are all cured, because God had put a curse on them that, you know, their wombs were closed. There was going to be no children. They were afflicted with God's wrath, curse, basically, affliction, until this was settled. And that was chapter 20. So the birth of Isaac. At long last, Sarah bears a child of her own. And look how old she is, y'all. She is almost 100 years old. I believe she was 90 at the time. And both of them had laughed at God's promise of Sarah's birth of Isaac, and therefore his name means laughter. And of course, the Lord God named their child. And it says, and Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse a child? Yet I have bore him a son in his old age. They are over the moon, joyed, totally happy that God's promise has come true, that this promised child whose offspring will be countless people for generations has finally come true. So God protects Hagar and Ishmael as the next part of this chapter 21. And it says, but Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, who had born to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, cast out the slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account it was his son. So I wrote over here, the joy of Isaac's birth is soured by Ishmael laughing. Because, he could have been laughing at anything, but in Sarah's mind, he's laughing about the baby. So Sarah demands Abraham drive the child and his mother out to prevent, him from any of Isaac's inheritance. And it really upsets Abraham. Excuse me. And it should, because it's his child. But God assures him he will still make a great nation of Ishmael and to do what Sarah asked of him. So Abraham obeys and sends them away into the wilderness. It says, so Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. So Hagar and Ishmael soon run out of water, and she fears that the boy is going to die. She puts him under a bush, and it says she walks about a bow's length away from him, and she begins to cry because she doesn't want to see him die, because she just knows he's going to. He's dying of thirst, quite literally, and she just cannot bear as his mother to see it. So it says, an angel calls to her from heaven that God has heard Ishmael's voice and will still make him a great nation. They are provided water, and Ishmael grows up in the wilderness. He becomes a great archer and eventually marries an Egyptian woman that his mama picks out for him, which is really cool. And he does. He lives in the wilderness at Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So we know that Hagar and Ishmael, even though they are no longer part of Abraham and Sarah's family here, they are well taken care of, and God kept his promise over Ishmael. So the last part of chapter 21 for the night, my friends, is a treaty with Abimelech. And so I love this. It says, God is with you in all that you do. And I put over here, despite Abraham having lied to the king Abimelech, he has noticed that God is with Abraham. He has respect for God's power and his blessing of all Abraham does. So he goes up to Abraham and he says, God is with you in all that you do. Now, therefore, swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or my descendants or with my posterity. But as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and the land where you are and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham says, I swear. So their first encounter results in the king giving Abraham animals, servants, silver, and the land he had been occupying at the time, And now the king would like to formalize their relationship with a permanent home being offered to Abraham and all his people, and basically becoming official allies, because he knows God walks with this man and I need him on my side. I don't need him or his God as my enemy. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. So Abraham agrees to never lie to him again and to deal kindly with him and his people like he asked, but he insists that in their agreement be the inclusion of the well he dug for himself, and that's in dispute. And it says, when Abraham proved Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants has seized, and Abimelech, I can't even say the word, y'all. I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I've not heard about it until today. So he's being very honest. He's like, man, I would help you with this well, but we're just now talking about, this peace treaty basically between us, and now you bring up the well. And so Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set aside 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? And he said, these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, and that this may be a witness for me that I dug the well. Therefore the place it was called Beersheba, because both of the men swore an oath. So you're kind of like, okay, well, what's so important about these 7 lambs and this well? I mean, it's kind of like, what's going on? Because after they make this covenant, it says Abimelech and Phicol whatever the guy's name was, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. And then Abraham plants a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and calls upon the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham stays in the land of the Philistines for like a long, long time. So it's like, okay, well, you didn't explain what's going on with these lambs and why there's 7 of them. What's the deal? So this is what I found out. I thought, okay, well, yeah, now I see why we went into it. I say, okay, so Beersheba means well of 7 or well of the oath. And the reason why he gives 7 additional lambs is a sign that he's telling the truth. You know, I'm telling you the truth. I dug this well. Your servants are trying to say they did it. I truly, truly dug it all by myself. And so I'm giving you, you know, he says he gave him, what did he give him? Oxen. He gave him sheep and oxen. Oh, excuse you guys. And then he gives him 7 more, you know, baby lambs, basically is what he gave him. And that's why he gave him 7 more, and he sets them aside. Is like, if you accept those, then you accept the fact that I'm saying I dug the well. And of course, we know that he took the extra 7 ewes, and that means he agrees that well belongs to Abraham. And so what's really cool is the well becomes an important place in Israel's history. So I can't wait to see when this well in Beersheba is going to pop back up. But we know from the foreshadowing of doing commentary at this last part of chapter 21 that this well is significant. So we're going to see it again when we're talking about, you know, the nation of Israel. So that was my reading tonight, friends. I'm sorry it's really late. It's just been a really long day, and I prayed over this information today because, like I said, a lot of people want to, you know, there's a lot of ways that people want to interpret this, and it seems like they put like some of their phobias and things like that into it, and that's not what I'm about. What I'm about is, you know, just strictly reading the verses, reading the commentary, and there is nothing wrong that if you find commentary you do not agree with, pray on it. Continue reading. You will find something. The Lord will help you find what you need to help you understand it. Okay? So, tomorrow night, it looks like we're going to be getting into, the sacrifice of Isaac. Oh my gosh, y'all. That's one, that's a hard one. So, until I see you, my friends, for another video, y'all have a blessed evening and a wonderful weekend. Bye.